Alright guys, I'm about to give you 23 reasons why the United States should leave NATO. So let's look at this chart. This shows you NATO defense expenditure per country for 2021. And a quick glance here can show you what the story is. The United States is spending way more than any other country. We can see that they spent over 800 billion in 2021. And then the next highest is the UK, 72 billion. So the second highest country, the UK, spent less than 10% of what the United States spent. And we can see here how if we go down through the list, the numbers just get smaller and smaller. Now some will argue, well, the United States, their economy is much bigger than any other country. This is true. But we're going to be talking about percentage of GDP. And this is the heart of what I'm talking about. It's the percentage of GDP that's important. And that's because there's a pledge from all the countries to spend 2% of their GDP, a minimum of 2%. So here it says not all countries contribute equally. The agreed upon target for European NATO members, for example, is to spend 2% of GDP in defense by 2024. But many countries are not on track to meet this goal. So I guess there was an agreement that they would up their payments to 2% by 2024. But this agreement was made a very long time ago. So they haven't been contributing for years. They're just trying to make up now for being delinquent in their payments for all these years. And honestly, I think the US has been too soft in these countries because they should have been paying 2% all along. But now they're saying they'll do it by 2024, and even right now they're not on track to do so, a lot of them. So on this list here, it's ordered by share of GDP, and we can see the United States, they're way on top with 3.42% of their GDP. So they're way over the 2% minimum. And that's part of the reason why the United States is spending way more than any other country. So up here at the top, the US defense spending would be close to 811 billion this year. And then all the other countries combined is 363 billion. So America is spending more than double all the other countries combined. It's crazy. And again, the argument that the US economy is much bigger, then that's a fair argument. But we're going to see in a minute how the spending is so unfair to the United States. And again, back to the share of GDP. This is why it's so unfair. The United States is spending way over 2%. So let's have a look at the other countries. Greece, 2.24. So Greece, they're meeting their end of the bargain. They're over the 2%. Estonia, 2.13%. The UK, same, 2.13%. Romania, 2.04%. Latvia and Poland, just over the 2%. So these countries are meeting their target of 2%, but the rest, they're not meeting the target. So I'm about to reveal the 23 reasons why the US should leave NATO. So here we go. Here's the 23 reasons. Lithuania, Turkey, France, Croatia, Slovakia, Norway, Montenegro, Bulgaria, Portugal, Germany, Denmark, the Netherlands, Canada, Albania, Italy, Hungary, Czech Republic, Slovenia, Belgium, Spain, Luxembourg. Now that's 21. There's two more countries I have to mention. We've got Iceland and we have North Macedonia. So these two countries were not on the list here. I just read out. We can see North Macedonia is on this list. According to this, they spent 219 million US dollars. Now their GDP is about 13 billion. So I'd made this calculation earlier and it came out to 1.68%. So $219 million is 1.68% of 13 billion. Now on Wikipedia they have all the countries on the list, and here we can see Macedonia, they spent 1.09% of their GDP according to this. So either way, Macedonia 1.09 or 1.68, whichever, it's still less than 2%. Now let's look at Iceland. Here it says NA, not available. So what's going on? Here we go. Iceland does not have an army or military. The figures for Iceland relate to spending on maintaining the Icelandic air defense system, intelligence gathering, and military exercises. So this article is showing military spending in Iceland. Now it's out of date. It's only up as far as 2012. Between 2009 and 2012, they were spending between like 17 and 26 million dollars, which is very little. Iceland's GDP happens to be just about identical to North Macedonia. It's about 13 billion. And North Macedonia, they're spending over 200 million. And Iceland is spending like 18, 19 million. And this was only as far as 2012. And I found this article here. Iceland military spending defense budget for 2019 was 0.00 billion. And the same for 2018, 17, 16. Their defense budget is practically zero. So they do spend a little bit on like air defense systems and military exercises. But here's the important point. Iceland does not have an army or military. So why are they in NATO? Why is America and other countries involved in a defensive pact with Iceland when Iceland has absolutely no army whatsoever? Now, people argue that Iceland is so small that there's no real point in having a military because they would get destroyed even if they had like a small military. But I think it's the principle that counts here. Iceland should have a military, even if it's only like 5,000 people or whatever. Now in this list, it's saying that Lithuania is actually over the 2%. It's saying it's 2.13%. And back here, it's saying it's 1.98%. So I'm not sure which figure is correct. So Lithuania might actually be above the 2% right now. So Lithuania may get a pass. So it might be 22 reasons instead of 23. But I'm going to say 23 anyway, because Lithuania, I think, should be spending more than 2%, given that they border Russia. So let's talk about Russia and the situation right now. Now, in this article, it says, while outright nation-on-nation conflict is becoming more rare, threats to the collective security of NATO allies have not disappeared. So this article is a few years old, and this sentence looks really dumb right now, given what's just happened with Russia invading Ukraine, that nation-on-nation conflict is becoming more rare. And now we could be, not to sound too dramatic, but we could be looking at World War III here with what's going on with Russia and Ukraine. While countries may have differing opinions on the exact amount each should be contributing, rising expenditures are a sign that NATO is still a priority for the near future. So countries are spending more money, but again, we see that it's skewed towards certain countries, especially the US. And now because of the Russian invasion, Germany have had a change of heart, it seems. Germans have backed the government's decision to massively increase military spending. So Olaf Scholz, the new chancellor, announced recently that they're going to be spending a ton more money on the military. And here it says they've pledged to lift military spending to a NATO goal of at least 2% of GDP starting this year. And I would say it's kind of too little too late now. They should have been doing this for years and years, for the last couple of decades. Here we can see their spending is only 1.36%. It should be 2%. And Germany has the second biggest economy in NATO. And so this shortfall amounts to a lot of actual money here. They're like 0.64% down on what they should be spending. And that amounts to a lot of money. So in the Wikipedia list, it's actually the same. It's 1.36%. So Germany, even though their percentage is higher than some of these other countries, they're the biggest culprits as far as I'm concerned. Because their shortfall in terms of actual money is much higher than all of these, given the fact that Germany's GDP is much higher than all the countries below it. And Germany is finally waking up. Germany is really in a very compromised position, given that they import so much gas from Russia. What this chart means basically is that US taxpayers, the US people, are getting screwed by these European countries. And people talk about how these European countries have wonderful healthcare systems and welfare systems, but it's easier for them to have that when it's the United States that's propping up their defense. So guys, I want to hear from all of you, especially people in the US. What do you think? Do you think it's unfair that you're spending all this money on European defense when you see your paycheck and you see all this federal tax taken out? Some of that money is going to defend countries like Germany. And I want to ask the Europeans watching this, what do you think? If you're German or French or whatever, what do you think of this? The fact that you guys are benefiting from the United States taxpayers. That's essentially what it's about. And now with Russia invading Ukraine, the chickens are coming home to roost, and all these European countries are falling behind, they're left short. And here's an example of the chickens coming home to roost. Hundreds of German missiles given to Ukraine, stored in moldy boxes, and do not work. So at least 700 anti-aircraft missiles sent to Ukraine from Germany are no longer operational, meaning the arms supply has shrunk by a third. Germany reluctantly sent these missiles to begin with because they didn't want to send any weapons to begin with, and they were even banning other countries from sending weapons. I think Estonia were banned from sending weapons that came from Germany, and this is particularly embarrassing, and that's absolutely correct. Now, what would happen if a country invaded Germany? Germany can't provide a small amount of missiles to Ukraine, what would happen if Russia invaded Germany or China or whoever? And so Europe is now looking towards America yet again to help in this situation. And if America helps, what's going to happen? We're going to have World War III. This is an absolute nightmare. Would Russia have invaded Ukraine if all these countries had been spending their 2% pledge? They would be in a much better position militarily right now. I mean, some of these percentages are absolutely embarrassing. I mean, some of these countries aren't even spending 1%. Belgium, Spain, Luxembourg, Slovenia is barely over 1%. Czech Republic, Hungary, and Italy. And Italy is another country that's heavily dependent on Russian gas. And these European countries are totally compromised right now. And for all the talk about how NATO is unified and all this, well, you know what? Maybe they can unify because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, but the facts are the facts. And this lack of military spending puts them in a weaker position than they could be in right now. Alright guys, I'm going to sign off now. Subscribe, like the video, comment. See you guys later.